Okay, it's part 3 for us in our young series about the relocation to Thailand. It got me thinking about this because this anniversary is almost coming up now 6 years ago that we did this. And it was stressful. To say the least, it was stressful. So today's video is going to be on, as I sweat, it's very hot today, is how we got rid of everything. How do you decide what to keep? How do you decide to think maybe put in storage or store somewhere? And what do you definitely want to bring with you? We knew that we could bring 2 pieces of luggage each of up to 50 pounds for free. We also had to pay for the dogs, different story, but any of our additional luggage we had to pay for that as well. So we are packing under the impression that we're only bringing 2 bags each plus our carry-on, and that would be it. Everything else in our life had to go. And I want you to look around your home right now and think, I have to get rid of everything, and how much of it you have an emotional attachment to? How much do you have I don't give a crap about it attitude towards? That's what we had to do for everything in the house. And selling everything in the house meant not having it anymore. And you don't want to sell things too early because you may still need them. You don't want to sell your bed or your couch until absolutely necessary. You don't want to sell your washer and dryer because you probably want to do some laundry before you leave. But you could sell other things that you may not need right now, like some lamps or emptying out a bedroom. So because our daughter moved to Thailand before we came out, she was ahead of us, we were able to sell her bedroom set ahead of time. I was able to sell everything in my office that I had at home at a time, and I was just working off of a laptop at that point. So my computers were all got sold. So for 6 weeks, from the day we listed our house for sale, we had yard sales every weekend. And every weekend our neighbors came by and picked through our stuff. It wasn't about making money off of any of it because a lot of stuff was old. It was more of not wanting to have to throw it away or drive everything to St. Vincent de Paul or Goodwill. That was our main thing we didn't want to do. And I only had a small hatchback at the time, and I didn't want to have to try to make multiple trips back and forth in that car. And I had to sell that car too, because I wasn't going to bring a 6-year-old car to Thailand. That would be stupid. So what did we do? Every week on Saturday morning, we moved everything out onto the patio and into our yard, opened up our fence, and started selling stuff. We would let our neighbors know that, hey, we're selling our house, everything must go. And so we had some people say, what are you going to do with your bed or your couch? And they reserved them to say, oh, we'll buy this or we'll buy that when you're ready to sell it. We were like, great. So our next door neighbor bought our bed, and on the last day when we woke up, we took off all the sheets and gave them a call and helped them move the bed from out of our bedroom and into theirs. We had one of those Select Comfort Air mattresses, super lightweight, easy to move. 2 people can just literally carry everything in just a few days. I would have brought it to Thailand, except the compressor for it is only at 110 power and not 220, and it would have just blown up if we plugged it in here. But I would have gladly brought that with us. That mattress is the best ever. If you ever have a Select Comfort bed, you know what I mean. But I digress. So we started selling everything in 6 weeks. At 4 weeks, we had our open house. We'd had 2 weeks of trying to get the house ready, and we picked a date that we wanted to list the house. And our hope was to sell the house and close on it within 1 month. And we knew that the market was really red hot at the time, and our real estate agent had told us we should have no problem to sell it within that time period, which was good because we'd already purchased plane tickets for us and reserved spots for our dogs. We listed the house on Thursday. The house was officially listed on Thursday for the open house. Saturday, we had the open house. Saturday came and went. We had like 8 people come and go. On Monday, we had 4 offers. On Wednesday, we had 5 offers. By Friday, we had accepted the offer, and in 21 days from the day of the open house, we closed on the house. We got to live in the house and had to pay our new people who purchased our house from us rent because they wanted to move in on the day that they closed, which was a Friday, but we couldn't move out before Wednesday because our flight was on Thursday at 1:30 a.m. So we had to give back to them 4 days worth of rent. It did work out because they needed to be out of their apartment by the 1st, and we were out of the house by the 27th. So it all did work out. We happened to find the right buyer who was perfectly ready to buy the house. Their finances were perfectly in order. Their offer wasn't the highest, but it was the best offer for we knew we could close on the house quickly. They didn't have anything lagging. They had the 20% to put down. They were willing to put down more than 2% earnest money. They were willing to put up to 5% earnest money. So we knew they were interested in. And they were funny, as they were the very first people who came into the house. And they sold the house 3 years later, which is to me funny as could be. But they may also made a really good profit off their house. That house was a money creator, not a money pit. So we are selling everything as we're going along. At the last week, I now have to sell the car. But we still need to get to the airport. So on Monday, I drive over to the We Buy Cars dealership, where they just pay cash for cars, because I didn't feel like trying to haggle with anybody. The car had a dent in it, and I got my money's worth out of the car. I asked them for a set amount, which I thought was fair. He gave it to me. Obviously, I gave him too low of a number, but they paid me cash on the spot. Not even a check, cash on the spot. From there, I took a taxi over to the car rental agency, and I rented a minivan. The minivan was more of a maxi van. It was a big van, which was important because we needed to load all the suitcases, the dogs, and the dog crates to go to the airport. Now this is the fun part of the whole process. Going to the airport. I have a rental car, I have the dogs, I have the suitcase, and I have the wife. All are going to go to different destinations before we can get on our flight to go to Thailand. So the first stop was to the airport, where I dropped off the wife and the luggage. And she just hung out at the airport. Because we couldn't check in early, that we could just check our luggage and go. She just had to sit there and babysit the luggage. Next stop was to a different part of the airport to drop off the dogs. Gave them all the paperwork they needed. Then off to the car rental drop-off point at the airport. Other end of the airport in LAX. If you've ever been there, you know it's not in the airport. Then take the shuttle bus back from the car rental all the way back to the airport an hour and a half later, where I met my wife. From there, we were able to check in right away because our timing was actually perfect. Stress had been completely relieved at that point because we knew the dogs were checked in. Our luggage was checked in. We made our flight okay. The only thing we need to do is arrive safely in Thailand and pick up our dogs. What a relief. Up until that time, getting rid of everything, selling everything, parting with things that you don't really want to part with. Like I had tools, who cares about tools? I did. That I've had since I was 13, 14-year-old when I first started learning to work on cars. I had a socket set that my father bought for me, an adjustable wrench set, all my woodworking tools, and I had a lot of woodworking tools. I had a lathe, circular saw, routers, because I like doing that as a hobby. Getting rid of those was stressful and hard, emotionally wise. So if you have those kind of emotional attachments, you will find a hard time when it's time to get rid of them, when you realize the only thing you really need is just yourself. All the clothing that you bring here can be purchased again. The most important thing we packed in our luggage, in fact, one suitcase was all it carried, was photographs, pictures that we had on the walls, minus their frames, a silverware set that my mom had given to us for our wedding gift, my college education, my extra education certificates, and I have lots of that kind of stuff, and bedding, because we have very high quality bedding, sheets, and towels that we really loved. that we knew we couldn't find in Thailand, or if we did, they were going to be super expensive in Thailand. So that was one suitcase, just nothing like that. My wife had a suitcase of all of her clothing. I had a suitcase that had 3 laptops in it and some of my clothes. And I knew that most of the clothes that I owned would be too hot when I got to Thailand. So I was just already planning on buying new clothing when we got here. And that's what we did. Well, that's part 3 of my multiple part series of the relocation of Thailand. I hope you enjoyed this. A couple more days from now, I will pull out the next video about what we did when we got here and where we came to live. It's been Ross Around. Hey, if you like this video, subscribe. If you think it'd be helpful to somebody else or you have any questions, leave them in the comments. I will answer them. Remember, part 3.